What is Arch Manning's draft future? Many think it's a foregone conclusion that he'll be the number one overall pick in 2026. But our insider spoke with his dad, that dad, and tells us a different story. That's coming up. And speaking of what's next for quarterbacks, Nico's younger brother, Madden Iamaleava, could be facing a lawsuit. How NIL contracts will forever be changed. Plus, starter-level players are still up for grabs in the transfer portal. We'll give you the latest portal news and some names you may not know now, but need to before we kick off this fall. Also, happy NFL Draft Eve. I am sure you are getting plenty of draft content these days. So we're going to tell you the guys we consider college football's next Ashton Jeanty, Travis Hunter, and some other elite prospects. All that and more as the ultimate college football show starts right now. Welcome into the ultimate college football show. You know these guys. I'll remind you of who they are anyway. We got Smoke Dixon, Cooper Patagna. I'm Emily Proud. These are two guys who have spent a lot of time in front offices and Power 5 programs. So they're going to bring you a lot of great content today. I'm out of breath reading that cold open because there's so much we have to get to. But what are you looking forward to?
A little bit of everything. I mean, you think about it today, we had the 2027 update that came out. So that's the high school level. Then you have the transfer portal, a lot of names in there, top 100 players. And then you have the NFL draft. Always good for a lot of drama happening at Lambeau Field. I'm just glad we get to talk about all of it.
Cool. Next player up, outside the box thinker. Who's the next outside the box player? Yeah, I get to give you my take. And I know you don't want to hear it, but you're going to have to. You're going to have to.
Can't wait.
He doesn't want to hear it. I want to hear it. I'm looking forward to it. But we got to start off with some breaking news here on this show as it pertains to Arch Manning. On the eve of the NFL draft, we're looking ahead to future drafts with Texas quarterback Arch Manning. Here's more from our Chip Brown of Horns 24/7.
I spoke to Cooper Manning about Arch's, segue into becoming the starter at Texas and, what his life has been like up to this point. And Cooper Manning is a guy who's in no hurry. And I think that Arch is in the same vein. I mean, he's a guy who, was content to go to Texas and learn and grow behind Quinn Ewers. He didn't want to go somewhere where he had to be the savior. He's not in a rush. And Cooper Manning said, look, these expectations for him are crazy. They're ridiculous, he said. And the fact that Arch Manning is the, betting favorite right now to win the Heisman, and Texas is one of the top two teams to become, the 2025 national champion, according to the Las Vegas odds, he says, it's ridiculous. Everybody needs to slow down. And so I think Arch Manning is a guy who, is kind of unconventional. He turns 20 on April 27th, and he knows that his uncles, Peyton was at Tennessee for 4 years. Eli Manning was at Ole Miss for 5 years. I think there's just as much of a chance for Arch Manning to be the number one pick in the 2026 NFL draft as there is for him to come back to Texas and play football in 2026. So this is all going to depend on what we see on the field, as it should be. But he loves being at Texas. His younger brother Hyde is there, and so he's unconventional. I wouldn't bet on him coming out after this season.
Sounds like Cooper Manning, Arch Manning are both in no hurry to enter the NFL draft. Do you think that this is the right approach? Why?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a Manning approach. And Chip said it, right? With Peyton 4 years at Tennessee, Eli 5 years at Ole Miss. You think about Arch Manning, his recruitment going back to it. It was really hard to get any type of information, what was going on in that recruitment. They were very meticulous, very process-oriented about how they kind of approached everything that they were going through. And then you think about the quarterbacks this day and age, there have been guys that have had a lot of success. The odds-on favorite to be the number one pick tomorrow night is a guy that played at 3 different programs. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. You look at next year, what that could look like. Garrett Nussmeier, a guy that has stayed, developed at LSU. Drew Aller, the same at Penn State. Cade Klubnik at Clemson right now. There is a lot to be said for guys that can develop. And I think what you heard there from Chip talking to Cooper Manning was some cold water on the expectations. This is a guy that still hasn't even been a full-time starter yet. We've seen glimpses of him, some highs, some lows as well, but this is a guy that needs to play, experience a little turbulence, and grow up, right? And like he said, he'll turn 20 next week, so there is a lot of growth development in football that needs to be played for Arch Manning. And the other part about this, if you're just looking ahead, the Mannings are not going to rush Arch to put him in a situation that's going to compromise his long-term sustainability in the NFL. And we saw that really with Eli getting traded out of San Diego to the New York Giants, that blockbuster trade with Phillip Rivers. So this is going to be, I think, one of those situations. It's going to be touch and go. If he goes out there this year, he goes to New York, they're in the Heisman race, they make a run in the playoffs, then Arch has a lot to consider. I think it's one of those things, how do you marry up where he is in his physical development along with, did he accomplish the personal goals that he set out for himself, which are very, very lofty when he went to Texas. And a lot of that has to do with winning a national championship. So I think this is more evaluated on a year-to-year basis, even with the news that I think we all knew. Not a shock. He'd be happy to stay at Texas for another year.
Coop, they've done this before. And when you look at it, it's not like this is a family that's just rushing into everything. Like you said, process-driven family. And a part of their process is quarterback development. They have to see him go through every single scenario, adversity, good and bad, to come out of it. Because what Cooper, Peyton, Eli, and Grandpa, Archie, they've always done is sit back and say, okay, how do we reset this button every single year so we can get the best definition of what a true franchise quarterback looks like? We don't need to rush this process. All we need to do is take our time, let him grow. Unlike everybody else that's bouncing around, like you said, from school to school to school, they've actually sat down and learned the entire process of the quarterback position. And again, they're not just looking at it only from the football standpoint. They're looking at it also from a branding and a marketing standpoint. So even if he plays well next year, Coop, and wins the Heisman, they win a national championship, if the team that's taken number one, they don't like that market, you know what they did last time. They traded out, or they just say no bueno and come back for another year.
It's really going to be interesting if any other quarterbacks and decision makers kind of look at this blueprint, which is not shocking. We're going to give the Mannings a lot of credit, but there's other quarterbacks that have done this. And even if you transfer, getting 2 years in the same system, you and I were talking about that earlier. That's what happened with Jaden Daniels in Baton Rouge, Bo Nix in Eugene. It's the same thing. Having continuity is really important for these quarterbacks to develop. The other part of this that I thought about, 2027, can you imagine if Arch Manning comes out being the GM that has to decide between Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, Arch Manning? I mean, at least for the top five right now, I know it's early. Be an insane draft.
Yeah. So you didn't even want to throw Nico in there? Could
Not
be
at
that.
this point.
Okay.
Not at
maybe.
this point.
Maybe. We might have that Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
oh, goodness. Well, thank you for serving up a transition on a silver platter for me, because we're going to talk about the Iamaleava family. Because speaking of quarterbacks, former Arkansas quarterback Madden Iamaleava transferred to UCLA earlier this week. This is, of course, after flipping from UCLA to Arkansas during December's signing window. So what happens with that NIL contract he signed a few months ago? Well, Arkansas Director of Athletics Hunter Yurachek posted this on X. I'll read you the first part. Quote, "I've spoken with the leadership team at Arkansas Edge, which is their collective, and expressed my support in their pursuit to enforce their rights under any agreement violated by our student athletes moving forward." So essentially, the athletic director is telling the collective to, well, collect from prospects who violate those NIL contracts. For a little bit of a closer look, let's hear from Trey Biddy from Hog Sports.
I think the message from Hunter Yurachek was just as much intended for fans and those who support the NIL collective Arkansas Edge as anything, as a way of saying, hey, we're not just going to sit idly by with your donations and your support and allow this kind of stuff to happen. Obviously, the message to the Iamaleavas is give it back. I do think he could have been a little bit more clear instead of saying moving forward, because it's my understanding that all this type of language, buyouts and such, are already in Arkansas NIL contracts. There's also the question of whether or not it's enforceable, court of law. There's other gray areas, I would think. I watched 14 practices this spring, all 14, 28 hours worth. It doesn't take that long to recognize that this kid is a special talent. And in my opinion, was going to be the starting quarterback at Arkansas after Taylor Green was done with eligibility in 2025. It's investment that took away reps from Blake Boda, from Grayson Wilson, from KJ Jackson, quarterbacks that are now worse off than they would have been had Iamaleava never come to Arkansas. So there's that aspect of it too. But this is the world of college football that we're in as well. It's been great for the elite guys out there. There's some pushback that we're seeing now, but for college players on the whole, it's been a bad system. The guy that keeps his nose clean, that makes good grades, great locker room guy, ends up walking on senior day. That guy doesn't exist in college football because they're all being processed across the country right now. So this is the system. I'm not breaking any news that this whole thing is bad for college football.
Yes, fantastic perspective there from our friend Trey Biddy. I love that he said that Yurchek coming out, this was just as much a message to the fans about where their money is going as it was to the Iamaleava family to, as he said, give it back. So what's the big picture significance of this latest development with the Iamaleava family?
It just looks good for Arkansas. They're just jumping out and saying, you know what, we made a bad decision in terms of giving maybe some money up front, and now we're trying to ask for it back. Coop, you and I both know that money ain't coming back. That money's been spent a long time, and they're just burnt. And for the next person that wants to attempt this, understand that we might be able to ask for this back. But other than that, Coop, everyone's doing this. No one's asking Caden Proctor back for the money from Iowa or every other person or player that's gone into the portal in December and jumped out in the spring. It just looks like they're kind of pissed off at this family, and they want to make sure that they never do this again.
It's kind of fascinating to see the way Josh Heupel, Tennessee, handled this and what they did and the public support from other college football staffers around the nation. And then you think about Arkansas and the AD getting involved and sending a clear message, like Trey said, to the fan base saying, hey, this is not a sunk cost. We need you to continue to support our NIL fund. I think the biggest thing when you talk to general managers around college football right now, it's more about, hey, how can we protect ourselves in this highly transactional world? And now with revenue share coming this summer, I think this is one of those things. Obviously, everything's kind of being hashed out right now, what that's going to look like. But how can programs protect themselves from this constant player movement? And I think this is another example where you're trying to really get some political and perceptional cachet.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I'm glad that you compared it to the Josh Heupel situation because it is kind of two examples of maybe the university or somebody who represents the university, like a Josh Heupel, kind of biting back at you can't just freely move. We're going to hold you accountable to a certain extent. Well, speaking of the transfer portal, it is still very much open for business, which is why we need to bring in our friend Chris Hummer, who has been reporting on everything happening with the transfer portal. And Chris, I got to start with our friend Jaden Rashada, a guy that we hear about quite a bit. A few days ago on the show, we talked about his upcoming visit to North Carolina, which was supposed to happen today, but it did not happen. So what's next for him?
Well, I mean, Jaden Rashada's name is in the news today, but it has very little to do with his transfer process. A judge in Florida set a trial date for his lawsuit against Florida earlier today for next July. So we all have that to look forward to. Depositions are due by November. So I don't know, maybe we see a settlement at some point between those two parties. Otherwise, that could be a very explosive thing next year. As for his transfer process, yes, the visit to North Carolina was canceled by North Carolina. I think depending on who you talk to, they would contend different things about why that happened. But Jaden Rashada still is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the portal right now. I know Cooper over there has him ranked as the top available quarterback in the portal at the moment and a top 20 portal quarterback overall. I think maybe a trip to like Fresno State could happen possibly in the future. Nothing is set based on my understanding with that, but I think he's somebody at this point that just is looking for a home and looking for a way to get some reps.
Speaking of available quarterbacks, one may be coming off the board. You placed a crystal ball, you and Matt Zenitz, for Notre Dame quarterback Steve Angeli to land at Syracuse. What makes you so confident that they will have a reunion? Or I guess not a reunion, but first time being with the Orange.
Well, New Jersey and New York
close.
Aren't that far apart, so somewhat of a reunion for Steve Angeli, I suppose. But yeah, he was on a visit to Syracuse yesterday. I've heard it went extremely well. I think Syracuse is very much trending for him. Syracuse has been looking to add another quarterback this cycle. It's kind of an interesting situation, frankly. Fran Brown publicly named LSU transfer Ricky Collins the starter 2 weeks ago, so it's interesting to see Syracuse pursue somebody like Steve Angeli like this in the portal. Before it was Zach Gibson, somebody they had zeroed in on, a quarterback from Georgia State, from Georgia State, yes, who had also made stops at Georgia Tech and Akron in his career, would have projected as more of a backup, whereas Steve Angeli is somebody who's going to come in and challenge for Ricky Collins' very shortly held starting job right away, if that happens. And I think it's very much trending towards Steve Angeli being an Orange by the end of the week.
It was one prospect too soon talking about a reunion, because it sounds like that could be the case for Micah Hudson. He is still in play to potentially go back to Texas Tech after all the movement that has happened during this spring. What are you hearing on his front?
Yeah, well, he was scheduled to go to Utah last weekend for a visit. I'm told that visit actually never occurred. And I think there's just some confidence at Texas Tech and around college football, if you just talk to people in the space, about Micah Hudson having a reunion in Lubbock. He's somebody that left the program, obviously, what feels like years ago, but was really just in December. He went to Texas A&M for a very short time before leaving the team and re-entering the portal. And I think if he were to go back to Texas Tech, it's a reunion that could make sense for all sides. Texas Tech really believed in Micah Hudson out of high school. He was the #1 ever recruit to sign with the program. Micah Hudson put a lot of faith in that Texas Tech staff, and obviously they went through a bit of a rocky time in December, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they found a way to come back together and make it work. Looking forward to 2025.
It feels like it was a long time ago. He's lived so many lives since then with Texas A&M and everything that happened there. But good to see them potentially reconcile that relationship. Speaking of wide receivers, Syracuse wide receiver Trevor Pena, what's up on his docket schedule-wise? I know a lot of parties are interested.
Yeah, very popular receiver in the portal. He was obviously at Penn State to start his visit process, but UCLA, USC, and Miami are all now on the docket for him. Miami was a school I was hearing a lot about early on in the process with him, but UCLA is very motivated to get Nico Iamaleava some receivers at this point. I would say that's one of the weaker receiving cores overall in the Big Ten. USC has been looking to add an impact receiver, and Jabor Pena certainly qualifies for that. Penn State's in that same boat, obviously coming off of that college football semifinal performance where a receiver didn't catch a ball. So all 4 of these programs are very motivated to add a top receiver, and Jabor Pena is the top, I guess, at least pure receiver on the board. Obviously, we have Keelan Marion ranked a little higher at the moment, but he's an all-purpose threat with his return ability. So Jabor Pena is a difference maker, and a lot of people are bidding for his services.
You mentioned him, BYU wide receiver Keelan Marion. He is the #1 available wide receiver right now in the portal. What does his visit schedule look like?
He was at Arizona State starting Tuesday, and I don't know if any other visits have been set to this point, but schools to keep an eye on are SMU, Miami, and Tennessee. All 3 of those programs are very interested in him. Obviously, I mentioned Miami earlier, looking for receivers, but SMU really likes what he can do as a kick returner and also his ability to help them out in the slot. Tennessee could use another receiver or two with some experience, and Keelan Marion certainly fits that mold. And I think he's somebody who's going to take several visits potentially before making a decision, and those are certainly some schools to have on the radar.
Yeah, the All-American kick returner. Definitely showing some interest in the portal. Chris Hummer, thank you so much for all the great updates. I know that things are coming fast and furious, so appreciate you breaking it down for us. You go check out your dog. We almost made it through. He just needed to be heard on this. Well, if Chris Hummer's dog has anything to say about it, he seems pretty excited about Keelan Marion, but why is this a prospect that we need to keep an eye on? Because I'm not going to lie, this is somebody that I did not hear about until he entered the portal.
I think there are probably a lot of fans out there trying to piece it together as well. Why do we have him ranked in the top 100? And, the biggest part about it is his return ability kind of transitions or transcends into his ability as a receiver, his ability to work inside out. I saw that as well. And one of those guys you watch on tape and you kind of fall in love with really quickly, and then you go back, you start doing your homework on the production side of it, some doesn't match up, right? So this is a guy that started his career at UConn and has never had more than 28 receptions in a season, 24 this past season, hovering around 350 yards, but all-conference return man, and you think about that ability and how it really translates to his next stop. I think the verticality, this guy is one of those guys that how he would be projected to the NFL, really a number 3 receiver, could be a number 2 receiver on Saturdays, and then what he can give you in the return game. So I think there is a lot more physically and the production hasn't matched up yet. So it's going to be interesting. If he can find the right fit, I think this is going to be a guy that can really, really help his NFL future with a really solid year.
Yeah, Coop, going back to my evaluation stages as a general manager at Maryland, whenever we looked at a number 3 or number 4 type receiver, we wanted to see, does he have any return value? What else can he do other than playing line up at the Z or the slot? Well, this is a gadget guy. You get the ball in his hands, cool. His ability to put his foot in the ground, get vertical, and score, tough. Then you see his toughness going across the middle of the field. Then you say, well, since he's a slot, he can't be that fast. He got to be quicker than fast. No. Like you said, vertically stretch the field and put the fear on DB's backs where they start turning around and running without going through their proper reads. I like what he brings, and he's a veteran that can go into any ball club right now and be a complimentary number 2. And if you have a 1 and a 2, this guy's your number 3, yeah, you're looking really, really good on the forefront in terms of being an offensive, productive player.
I'll say this too, teams are all looking for receivers right now. It seems like everybody's looking for receivers, defensive linemen. The linebackers are hard to come by. But if you're Trevor Pena or if you're Keelan Marion, you're one of those guys. This is one of those things where these guys are mid to late round projections at this point. This is really where I would say this is the financially smart move to be incentivized to go into the portal, find a potentially better fit. It's going to help you out in the short term and in the long term as well. So that is one of those kind of win-win situations where we've been going back and forth. What works and what doesn't work in terms of how do you balance your short-term and long-term future.
You said teams looking for wide receivers and defensive linemen. If you're looking for defensive linemen, well, they're all at Texas. They added 5 D linemen in the portal. We knew that was a position of need, but man, how do you think, or what do you think about the way they addressed it?
Listen, I know they love cattle down in daggone Texas, but I didn't know they love beef this much. Coop, listen to me. You look at all of these guys, stout, firm, interior defensive linemen that all played over 150 reps. Great to good rotational backup players, but would all of them have projections to be good starters. So what B. Harris did, general manager for Texas, he went in and just started evaluating what his defense looked like. On the edge, they can get to the quarterback. But going through a brutal SEC schedule and potentially have to play 16 games to win a national championship, he evaluated what they looked like at the end of the season. And towards the end of the season, they didn't look that tough up front. They played 2 games against Georgia last year. They got beat up physically. So he went in and said, you know what, I have the resources. Unlike most schools, shout out to him for going out there and having the resources. We know what resources mean. Money. To go out and get some interior defensive linemen that are one-gap penetrators, but stout enough to hold a point of attack and dare you to run the ball down the middle.
Right. You think about Texas 2 years ago, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, 2 guys that were top 40 picks in the NFL draft. And then you think about what they lose this year. Alfred Collins, he's gone. Vernon Broughton, he's gone. Braden Sorrell, he's gone. So Texas has this unique approach that I think only a few programs in all of college football could really take to the transfer portal, where you said it, beef. Defensive linemen in this economy, this college football economy, those guys are really expensive, right? So to be able to get 5 starting caliber players on the defensive line, you got to give a lot of credit to Texas. And we'll say it. I mean, obviously, they're one of the most well-resourced, well-positioned programs in the country. But this is really good scouting, and this hurts for North Carolina. Bill Belichick would love to have Travis Shaw. Hurts for Ohio State. They're out there right now in the market trying to find another warm body. They'd love to have Hero Kanu. Cole Brevard was another guy that a lot of people wanted as well. So these aren't just like other guys out there, right? If you ask teams about what the defensive line market looks like in the spring right now, there are a lot of teams reaching on guys that they hope pan out. These 5 are expected to play and contribute in the SEC. That's a different level. So Texas, they obviously thought their one sore spot going into the season was defensive line. All these guys, you said it, they're all interior guys. These aren't edges. You know, you got Colin Simmons out there, and the other one outside of him more as well. So this was something they needed to get addressed, and they got it done.
Coop, hurt my heart seeing LaVon Johnson leave Maryland. I recruited him, man. And can I give a quick story time?
Quick, yeah.
Quick one. Listen, I was in the locker room down in Maryland. Walked into the equipment room. My man had a black bag over his hand, ready to hit the transfer portal. I said, bro, what are you doing? He said, Smoke, I'm leaving. Texas wasn't one of the teams that he said. We all thought he was going to go to North Carolina. But like you said, Texas came in with that big bag, big belt buckle, big hat. Yeah, he ended up there in the heartbeat.
Sounds like Santa Claus.
Well, there are still some defensive linemen available. The number 4 player right now, Bernard Gooden, he's a top 50 prospect for us. Why is this a guy that maybe the teams would like, but like you said, are reaching for?
I think you turn on the tape against Alabama and Miami, but it was really the tape in Tuscaloosa where that was a close game for USF and Alabama. And you think about that offensive line. I mean, you think about Caden Proctor, Jaden Roberts, Parker Brailsford. Obviously they had a rotating cast at right tackle, but this was a kid that was extremely disruptive, and you can play him in a lot of different spots. You can play him on the edge. You can play him inside. He's only 6'1", but he plays so much bigger than that. His combination of suddenness, explosiveness, speed to power, and then the athletic change of direction, these are the type of guys that are getting hunted at the NFL level, those undersized interior players that have that first step explosiveness. I'm a huge fan of Bernard Gooden, to put him into context because we know Elo Madozi was a darling of this show. Bernard Gooden is right behind him, right? So really, really excited about Bernard Gooden and what type of impact he can have next year.
Twitched up 37 generated pressures last year, Coop. And like you said, you turn on that tape in Tuscaloosa, yeah, he was a problem. And when you look at it, you're always saying we need a closer, and we're talking about edge rushers. But when you can get an interior defensive lineman to go in your sub packages, nickel and dime, that's going to command a double team, or else that quarterback's going to get moved off his spot, yeah, you spend a lot of money for this.
It's cheat code.
Cheat code.
Mismatch. We got a question here from YouTube. Mitchell Case wants to know, is Madden Iamaleava the quarterback of the future for UCLA? Smoke, what do you think?
Nico Madden.
Madden, in this instance, what do we think?
I mean, we're rotating it, but I would say yes. I don't think that Deshaun Foster would have made that financial agreement with that family not to give baby brother an opportunity once the older brother leaves. And when you look at his skill set, it's not like older brother, but good enough. We've heard rumblings out of Arkansas that he was the future when Taylor Green leaves. So, yes, he does have a true opportunity to be that guy when the older brother gets out of there.
I think what we've learned, it's less about it's less about the talent of a Madden Iamaleava, and it's more about what does Big Brother do and how is Big Brother's experience in LA at UCLA. So if this ends up being a good relationship, good partnership for Nico, then Madden's going to have the opportunity to see that out, and we'll have some continuity. If not, I doubt we even see Madden suit up with significant reps for the Bruins. But he is a talented kid, and he needs continuity, just like his brother. I mean, they're not too dissimilar in that regard. So for the sake of his development, I hope he gets to stay at one place for a while.
And they recruited Madden heavily. He was at one point committed to go to UCLA, so they are familiar with him, and they did view him as some part of their future. I just keep thinking of the jerseys. You got to do an M and then spell Iamaleava. I mean, it's
small letters.
So yeah, very small letters on the back of those jerseys. Clearly, I'm worried about all the correct things. Thank you for submitting that question. If you have any other ultimate burning questions, feel free to drop them below in the YouTube chat. We are paying attention to what you guys are saying, and we love to answer your questions. All you have to do is hit that like button and submit your question. And that free like button that I just mentioned, it helps us accomplish this very goal. We are on the road to 1 billion views, and let me tell you, we are so close. So please just go and tell your friends and join us. We have a lot of fun on this show on Mondays and Wednesdays. And in honor of our pursuit, we are also holding a giveaway. We're giving out yearly VIP subscriptions. All you have to do to enter is to take a photo of you watching 24/7 Sports on YouTube, which if you hear the sound of my voice, you're doing that right now. Just snap a photo, share it while using the hashtag Road to 1 billion. I'll give you this information, guys. We've already given out 2 yearly VIP subscriptions, and I know we got more to give out, so check your DMs. Also, you could be a winner. The NFL Draft is tomorrow in Green Bay, and our friend and CBS Sports draft analyst Ryan Wilson dropped his latest mock. Cam Ward taken number 1. Not a whole lot of surprise there. We've got Travis Hunter coming in at number 2, Abdul Carter at 3, Ashton Jeanty at 6. So who are the next big things in college football with all of this talent on the way out? So for that, we welcome in our director of scouting, Andrew Ivins. Andrew was on the forefront of a lot of this great talent coming into college football, and I know you've been scouting them for many, many years. So we're going to ask you who is next in college football. So the first one is inspired by Cam Ward. Who is the transfer quarterback who could make a significant impact on his new team? And I'm going to add this, not named John Mateer. We've talked about him enough. Who else you got?
Hey, I'm buying stock in Miller Moss at Louisville, and I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I think we're going to get to the month of October, and I think Miller Moss is going to lead the FBS in passing yards. And why? Jeff Brom, he's kind of an offensive guru. He's got 3 quarterbacks right now in the NFL, Mike White, Jack Plummer, Aiden O'Connell. There's going to be a 4th when Tyler Shuck comes off the board this weekend in the NFL draft. I think Moss kind of fits his system. He can throw it around the yard, and yes, you go back to last year, Miller Moss at USC, there were certainly some low points. I can't get that interception against Michigan where he stared right out Will Johnson out of my head. But at the same time, there were plenty of highs. And I think this situation sets up perfectly for him at Louisville. You look at the start of the schedule, it's really easy. Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, Bowling Green, at Pittsburgh, Virginia. That's the first month. Really, the big test will be that October 17th date against Miami. So I like Miller Moss. I think he makes Louisville a contender in the ACC. They've retooled that defense, and he's got 2 really talented spark plug running backs next to him in Isaac Brown and Duke Watson.
I love that pick, Drew. That was one that we were talking about. I was going back and forth. Who could be this guy? Cam Ward. A lot of expectations, right? So I don't know if there's going to be a guy that's going to have that type of impact, but I'm going to go Fernando Mendoza, Indiana. This was a guy that I studied out of Cal. We put a 4th-round grade on, and the more and more you watch him, the more you like him, and a lot more athletic than you thought. The numbers don't wow you. 16 touchdowns, 6 INTs, average almost 275 yards a game. But I like this kid, just the way that he's kind of built, the poise as well in the pocket. He can move a little bit better than I think a lot of people think. This was a guy that you think about everything that Cal has lost. This would have been a really, really good team. So now you look at Indiana. They sneak up on everybody last year. They go to the college football playoffs. Can they do it again? I think this is going to be the guy that's going to have Indiana in the conversation in the Big Ten again after a year. Like I said, where Kurt Cignetti and the crew was just kind of like, where did these guys come from? Fernando Mendoza is going to be a guy that's going to make Indiana competitive, not a one-hit wonder. Will they go to the CFP? Time will tell. But I like these guys to be a thorn in everybody's side in the Big Ten for years to come.
Hey, Coop, I'm going off script right here, but he would certainly fit that Cam Ward billing. Fernando Mendoza out of Miami, I at one point had a 2-star grade on him. He was headed to Yale. That all changed. He finished as a 3-star prospect for us. So glad we made that move at the buzzer.
See, this is why we bring him in, because you have been scouting these guys for many, many years. This next question is going to sound kind of contradictory, but Travis Hunter, as we all know, is a one-of-a-kind prospect. So I'm going to ask you for the second one-of-a-kind prospect, who is maybe a unique type player that we should pay attention to this fall.
I'm going to go with my man, Koi Pond. If you know, you know. If you don't know, that is Koi Parrish, the all Big Ten freshman safety there at Minnesota. And you see it, right? He's got this practice jersey that's split down the middle, half maroon, half white. It looks kind of like a house-divided license plate. He did it all on defense as a true freshman for the Gophers, but PJ Fleck has indicated that Koi Parrish is going to play some offense this fall, and I'm not surprised. Go back to his recruitment. This was my number 5 freak in the class of 2024. He was a dynamic 3-sport athlete, had all the track and field markers, scored over 1,000 points on the hardwood, but he was a 3-phase impact player at Elko High School in Minnesota, a town of less than 1,000 people, and we saw him get it done in the return game. Sounds like Minnesota, PJ Fleck, kind of keeping the media out, but they're going to use him as a wide receiver. I think he's someone they're going to need, breaking in a new quarterback there and Drake Lindsey. He's going to be a lot of fun. And, the comp for him has long been Cooper DeJean. I don't know what the offensive comp is going to be, but again, certainly someone that I think we need to be talking about as we head into 2025.
Drew, you gave me a safety. I'm going to give you a safety right back. Caleb Downs. I've always said this is the best talent in terms of the safety position that Nick Saban has ever recruited and even played at Alabama. But he shows up to Ohio State. ball skills, the ability to return, is a punt returner. This is a one-off player. And I know last year Ryan Day said he was going to try him to put him on offense as the running back. You go back to his high school film, this guy was a dynamic player with the ball in his hands. Getting recruited, some thought that he was going to either play a running back or slot position. But when you're talking about unique, different type of player on the defensive side, you throw him right now on the offensive side, and you might have some buzz for Heisman.
2 top 50 picks, probably more than likely in the next couple of days. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. I mean, if there was a year to do it, it would be the draft eligible year, right, to play him at running back. I like both those picks.
I like it. All right, this next one is inspired by Shedeur Sanders, the fact that he went up from Jackson State to the P4 level and showed out. So who is the next quarterback with the best chance to level up and improve his draft stock?
How about Mark Gronowski, who arrives at Iowa by way of South Dakota State? This is a kid where NFL scouts were traveling to the Mount Rushmore State to watch him practice the past few years. Some reports out there that he had a day 3 grade for this year's draft. Some front offices thought he was going to be at the NFL scouting combine, but he ends up taking his talents to Iowa. And yeah, they have struggled with transfer quarterbacks in recent years, but this dude's a little bit different than the other veteran arms that they brought in. He's started and won an FCS all-time best 49 games. That includes 2 national titles. He's thrown for over 10,000 yards. He's almost rushed for 2,000 yards. So I think this is someone where, you know, he's obviously getting some compensation to be there at Iowa, but he has an opportunity to move up, right? Maybe go from a day 3 grade to a day 2 grade. So certainly I think he fits the bill going from the FCS to the FBS.
Like that picture. I'm going to go with Darian Mensah from Duke, the $8 million man over the next 2 years. So obviously a lot of expectations, but you think about Darian Mensah and this guy's story. I mean, he only had one other offer, and it was Idaho. Goes to Tulane, redshirts a year, and then out of nowhere wins the job, leads them to 9-4 on the season, and then is one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the entire portal, right? You think about his play throughout the start of the season, what he was able to do. You love this guy, the pocket savviness as well, his ability in between the numbers. I love what he can do. Accurate quarterback. He's a playmaker as well. So Darian Mensah going to Duke, I think not only has to justify the compensation, but this was a guy, ironically, kind of reminded me of Michael Pratt, who played at Tulane as well and went late day 3 to the Green Bay Packers. Can this be a guy that continues to kind of work up draft boards? Now he's going to have that level of comp against a Power 4.
Oh, the Duke and Iowa quarterbacks. Really digging deep here. I appreciate it. Ashton Jeanty is a guy who is expected to go in the top 10, definitely first round of tomorrow's draft. That would make him the first running back to go in the first round since 2023, because it did not happen last year, but man, has happened quite a bit over the last 10 years. So, Andrew, I ask you, who is the next game-changing running back like Ashton Jeanty?
Emily, I knew you were going to bring up the fact that multiple running backs might go in the first round.
I know you love it.
We've talked about it at length in recent years. I struggled kind of with this question because I think Ashton Jeanty is one of one, and that's the reason why he might go in the top 5 tomorrow night. And the other thing with this prompt is the transfer portal makes it hard to forecast, all right, who is going to get the lion's share of carries this upcoming season, right? A lot of the top group of 5 running backs have been gobbled up by the Power 4s. And I'm talking about like Ahmad Hardy at ULM, Fluff Bothwell at South Alabama. They're at new homes and they're kind of in some committees. So I searched, and the name I kept coming back to, Raleek Brown at Arizona State, former blue chip recruit. Now think about it. Arizona State won the Big 12 this past season behind the arm of Sam Levitt and the legs of Cam Scatterbo. Well, Scatterbo is going to be drafted this weekend. He's gone. The Sun Devils were 20th nationally in rushing offense. They want to run the football under Kenny Dillingham. They brought in some transfers to kind of supplement that running back room. But reading our friends at Devil's Digest, it sounds like Raleek Brown had a ton of explosive runs during spring practices. This is a kid that when he signed with USC, he was drawing some comparisons to Reggie Bush. So is Raleek Brown going to be in New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation? Probably not. But I think this is someone where we're going to look up on Saturday and be like, oh, yeah, Raleek Brown, hey, he's making plays for, what could be a back-to-back Big 12 champ.
Drew, Raleek's not going to be in the Heisman Trophy running category, but I got one for you. Jeremiah Love. Love to love, love. one of the most explosive runners in terms of contact balance, speed, and the ability to make one cut. As you see right here, he just gets right through, and then he outruns every single average angle. The last guy that ran like that, it reminded me, Darren McFadden. Just a one-cut guy can get downhill and change the entire game. But he has patience, balance, strength. He can do it in short yardage. He can do it any way that you give him the ball. Throw it to him. Underhand toss it to him. Put him at Wildcat quarterback. One of the most impressive runs that I've seen was that run when he got down on the 3-yard line. Ran through 2 guys. Kept pushing. He was only on one knee, Coop, and found a way to get into the end zone. So when you're talking about a runner, I want a runner that can do it short yardage, be able to create on his own, and whenever he's in the pass game, pass pro, but when he get balls thrown to him, catch it and score. And when you can score at any point, yeah, Heisman difference maker. I would take Jeremiah Love this year as my number 1 back, and I know you love Ashton Jeanty, but I think they're just different because of size, speed combination for Jeremiah Love.
Ooh. Going beyond just a comparison for Ashton Jeanty, somebody better than him and Jeremiah Love. This was a great discussion. Andrew Ivins, we obviously had to talk about first-round running backs when you were on the show, so we appreciate you joining. And if you enjoyed that conversation at home, be sure to hit that like button and also listen to the 105 podcast with Andrew Ivins and Cooper Patagna. They tell me that typically episodes drop on Monday and Wednesdays, but there will be a very special Thursday episode this week where they look back on some of the top prospects from the 2022 class, and you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. So if the draft is all about the future, let's look even further into the future. The initial top 247 rankings for the 2027 class dropped earlier today. These are the top 10 players in the group, headlined by the number 1 overall prospect, quarterback Elijah Ivins. So let's introduce you to the rest of this group and introduce you to our friend Hudson Standish, who is here from our scouting team. Now we officially have 2 members of our scouting team here on screen, so we got all the good information here. And we have to start at the top because, Hudson, everybody loves 5 stars, and there are no 5 stars in this initial ranking. Why is that?
Well, Emily, I think it's so early in the evaluation process for the class of 2027. These are guys that just finished their sophomore year. And, we didn't want to force it. We didn't think that there was a clear name that deserved the 5-star status at this stage, even though there are a ton of guys in this group that we like. Part of the reason for that is 6 guys from the initial top 100 reclassified into the 2026 class. So even though we have plenty of players that we like in this initial top 247, I don't think there was one name that we just felt we had to put the 5-star on him right now.
Something that is kind of unique is we're starting to see more and more of these guys commit earlier. We could see some 2027 guys go off the board as soon as this summer. We've already seen some commitments too. So Hudson, what's the significance of this accelerated recruiting timeline that we're seeing?
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly with the accelerated recruiting timeline, right? So you have official visits for the rising seniors starting in the summer. So these college programs have their boards set and almost filled out before senior campaigns even start. I think what that allows schools to do is to then really dive into the, rising junior class. Last year we saw it, Faison Brandon off the board in August, Dia Bell committed to Texas in June, and then Keyshawn Henderson, now our number 2 quarterback in the country, was a really savvy take from Houston in April. So especially with the quarterbacks, but in general, just for these recruits, because so many commitments for the rising seniors are coming off the board earlier and earlier, it just accelerates the timeline for the class of 2027 prospects as well.
Yeah, everybody's jumping on board early, trying to get into the school of their dreams. Let's talk about some of these prospects here. Coop, Elijah Ivins, the number 1 player in this class. What do we need to know about him?
Well, big kid, big stature, and a guy that I think physically you look at, there's so much to like about this kid. 14-1 last season at Dunham, and a guy that's only going to get better and better and better. And back to the earlier question, why we don't have a 5-star at this point, these guys are still developing. And a guy like Elijah Ivins, for us right now, we're on the dating scene. We're checking things out, but we're not in love yet, right? We're not ready to propose, and that's where we are with Elijah Ivins. And there are a lot of other quarterbacks out there. Gunnar Rivers, you talk about Colton Nussmeier as well. There's some interesting arms that come up, but this is the guy right now that we obviously feel the best about in his future. He's put it on tape. We like the physical developmental upside too. So we can't wait to see kind of what he looks like in the first half of next season is going to be a really, really important exposure for him.
Yeah, Coop put it best with the physical frame right off the bat. This is somebody that's verified above 6'5", 215 pounds, and will throw down windmills on the basketball court. He has the physical tools to become a force multiplier at the next level, and he's really the only quarterback in the 27 cycle we've studied with over 100 total touchdowns, both through the air and on the ground. I thought in the Louisiana D3 Select state title game, he really put on the cape and showed not only physical toughness, taking a ton of big hits, but the mental toughness to rally his team back to, a narrow loss, their only loss on the year. Elijah Haven has the arm talent to absolutely drop balls in the bucket, 55 plus air yards. Where we think he can improve is getting more consistent, using that velocity and natural arm talent to kind of dial in on guys at the second level. You got to be able to rip the digs and comebacks as well as you can throw the moon balls on the go routes.
Yeah, but those aren't as fun. When I hear you guys talk about the physical stature, though, I just keep thinking, this is a sophomore, so there's still so much more developing to do, both physically and as a quarterback. Hudson, you wanted to point out two cornerbacks in John Meredith and Joshua Dobson. Why are these two names that we need to know?
So John Meredith is the complete package. He owns all the physical tools at a shade over 6'2", 175 pounds, to stifle route runners at the line of scrimmage, but also he has the foot speed and the fluidity in his hips to really cover guys in isolation moving down the field, not even mentioning what he can do as a tackler. This is somebody who, in a third-party combine testing setting, absolutely tore it up. On the track and field scene in Texas, he's also gone sub-22, 44-plus triple jump. He's just an elite athlete at this stage and is somebody who could not only turn into a field eraser on Saturdays, but also a potential, showstopper at the NFL Combine one day.
It's hard to believe these guys are 15, 16 years old. I mean, the thing that I watched earlier today looking at John Meredith, it's like we had these corners, these really long ones. You think about them, DJ Pickett, Devin Sanchez, right? All these guys, DeJohn Lee, and then you look at Meredith, 6'2" plus, and Hudson talked about the football player a little bit from an elite testing profile. This guy's running 4.42. You see the way that he moves. Hudson got to see him a little bit earlier this year at the UA Next Combine. It's pretty unbelievable how advanced these guys are at this position. So this guy right now, where we have him ranked, I mean, I get it, it's early for the five-star conversation, but he has every physical tool you could possibly want at corner. Can't wait to see him over the next 2 years.
I love it. Hudson, thank you so much, and thank you to our entire scouting team. A lot of work goes into this 2027 class. Everybody's looking at the draft. We're looking 5 years ahead. You can check out the full top 247 for the class of 2027 on 247sports.com. That was a lot of 2s and 7s there. Hope you can keep up. Either way, go learn more about the future stars of the sport. So, Smoke, we're going to get to some ultimate burning questions, but first we got to call it something that our friend Smoke was a part of. You were asked a question, I don't know if it was burning, but a question on HQ on Monday, essentially just what is Tennessee's ceiling now with a new quarterback coming in? And your answer, it apparently upset some Vols fans, so let's listen to your answer.
Oh, man, you're running right back into where Jeremy Pruitt left. In my opinion, when you don't have a quarterback that can get you to 10 wins. We're talking about the team that just lost to the national champions in the playoffs. So you're going down a level and down a step in terms of quarterback play. Irregardless of what everyone thinks about Nico's ability or how he played or how Tennessee's offense was last year in terms of heavy run, 75th in pass or 76th in passing offense, he still was a player that defensive coordinator had to stay up late at night just because if he was on, Tennessee was almost unbeatable because they played great defense as well.
You knew what you were doing, bringing up Jeremy Pruitt. So among the many kind responses, at Volmoose2 asked, I'm sorry, but who are you again? And man, did we get a fantastic clap back from Smoke. Let's roll the tape here. This was the quote tweet that we got. So he asked, who are you? And you responded with, I'm the guy in the end zone. We had to pop you up on cam because I just needed to see that smug look on your face.
Smokey.
This tweet got 1 million views. So how are we feeling about it now, a day out? Feeling pretty good?
Listen, back then I could run a little bit.
You had to remind him.
Man, just had to remind him. Just the guy in the end zone. It's real simple. Emily, I usually don't get at people, but sometimes when you bark up that tree, Coop, I just come on down
Gotta be
and
ready.
let them know the real Smoke Dog, was in the building that night. It kind of kept them quiet.
The real
Cigars,
Smokey.
and we planted a flag that night, so they'll be all right. But just getting back to what I was saying,
Yes.
I apologize that my man Jeremy Pruitt had to take a straight last.
Those are fighting words.
Yeah, that's my guy too. So I apologize.
You knew what you were doing.
Text and apologize. But Coop, when you look at Tennessee, even with Nico playing at his best, I thought it would be an 8 to 9 win season. If he played really good, maybe 10. But now you're coming back with Jake Merklinger, and you got George McIntyre, turnover Joey. Joey threw the ball to the other team 14 times last year. And a 56% completion rate. We know in Heupel's offense, get the ball to the right players with accuracy and don't turn the ball over. As much as we can say about Nico, Nico didn't turn the ball over. So me saying back to the Jeremy Pruitt era, yeah, if you don't win 10 games and you win 5, 6, what's the difference? You'll be playing the Papa John's Bowl, Turn-Up Bowl, some type of bowl, but you're not playing the CFB playoff.
Right. But and what's important, I think, what you're saying is the context is in the vacuum of the 2025 season.
Right. Help's coming.
If I had to guess, I think there are probably a lot of Tennessee fans out there, Emily, you're one of them, that were probably saying, hold on, we got a pretty good foundation. We just went to the college football playoffs. We're not going back to the Jeremy Pruitt days for the next 2 to 3 years, the dark ages, right? We're in a good spot. But you were talking 2025, and a lot of that had to do with the lack of conviction in the quarterback play.
A lack of pissing me off, for one, Coop. But no, honestly, Coop, the quarterback position is the most important position in college football. And even if you have a good foundation, we're saying that Brandon Faison coming at some point. He's going to still have to sit down for a year or two, maybe. Yeah, that's still 2 to 3 years that you have to sit there and get your head busted in. Not in the Sun Belt, Conference USA. Yeah, them guys in the SEC are pissed off that you've been busting them up for the last couple of years too, Coop. They're going to get at you.
I will say, for Tennessee's sake, as somebody that studies the portal, I don't know where else they really could have gone outside of like Dylan Rizek, who was at UCF, who was up and down. That would have been a reach. Stephen Jelly, right, who's barely played, looked good in flashes. This was the one guy on the market that is truly battle-tested. Now, whether or not he is a caliber starter in the SEC, that's completely debatable. I understand that. I just think they were landlocked, and they went after a couple guys that are currently on rosters that they couldn't get out of there. And we talked about the why that was going to be a challenge for them a few shows ago, and I think this is really the best situation of what they could do. And I'm with you. I think it's going to be a tough year, and this is going to be Josh Heupel's toughest coaching job of his career, because if it gets off the tracks early, he's going to have to keep these guys in lockstep, and it's going to be really important. Tennessee's culture is going to be tested this year in a big, big way. And I'm not saying it's all going to fall down, but the expectations from going from a playoff-level team to potentially 6, 7, hopefully 8 wins, that's a lot different, right? That's a far cry from where they were last year.
Yeah, the same way that you build up your foundation, they can come down crumbling real quickly, especially with NIL and guys being able to poach your daggone roster.
Very interesting conversation, and we appreciate everybody for playing along. And Smoke, that was some fantastic, I don't want to say twittering, but posting on X last night.
You're a natural.
Nah, man.
Well done. Also, our viewers are great at posting on X and also on Instagram. We got this next question from @BruinFaithful99. Is UCLA becoming a major NIL player? I think the reason that he's asking this is because Deshaun Foster spoke earlier on this week, and I think we have some sound from that. Let's take a listen.
I haven't lost anybody this portal to money. You know, we've been able to actually offer people the same amount or even more than what other people have offered them. You want to be in conversations. You want to play big time ball. You want to have people to, you know, just, you want to have haters. You want to have, you know, like you want all of this stuff because that means that you're trending in the right direction.
So, is UCLA a major player in the NIL space?
I believe him when he says that he hasn't lost anybody. In terms of them and what they've done from an acquisition standpoint, I would also have to say that they haven't really been able to sink their teeth into some high-level talent as well. They brought in some guys that I think will help their team. But they also more than likely got Nico on a pretty heavy discount as well, right? So, and they were willing to spend. They spent north of 7 figures for Joey Aguilar as well. So, I believe him when he says that this is a team that is committed and invested. Are they going to be a big NIL player? It depends what your definition is. Are we talking about Oregon? Are we talking about Texas? Are we talking about Texas Tech? Absolutely not. They will not be in that range. But this is going to be a team that will try to be competitive. That's probably the best answer I can give.
Deshaun Foster, a.k.a. the real smoke, Mr. Stiff Arm Smoke in the face back in the day. Listen, talk your talk. I love it. But the number one thing you got to do in this game, Coop, is bluff. Sometimes you got to play a little poker. Because if you go out there and say, hey, listen, we don't have a lot of money, who's going to come out there? But if you say we've never lost one, if I'm one of them NIL agents and I'm one of them players and I think UCLA might be a spot for me, yeah, I'm going to take that visit. Once you take that visit, everything's up in the air right now. So good job of bluffing if he is. But if he's not, cash him out.
Yeah. One of those things, like you said, you have to say, right?
You got to bluff.
Yeah.
It's a bluff. It's a bluff game.
Yeah, and so far, I mean, after they have a big talent acquisition like they did with Nico Iamaleava, it's hard to argue otherwise because that was a big landing spot for him. He also spoke a lot this week just about the addition of Nico and everything that's happening in the offseason with UCLA. But very interesting question there. We got another ultimate burning question from you. This comes via X at Cardinal Rob. What do you think of Andrew Luck taking snaps at practice? There was some fantastic video that dropped here that we can take a look at. But my biggest question is, I'm sitting next to a former general manager. Smoke, do you ever jump in there for a rep when you were GM?
No shot. I don't want to go through rehab.
Oh, no. How many bones would you break and knees would you tweak? Like, what do you think about this, though? A GM getting in on it.
Listen, man, shout out to Andrew Luck. We got to get that hair plugged, though, man. Got to get that hair taken care of. No shots at him. But you can't go
No
out.
shots.
No shots. Just the hair game is kind of off right now. But, I mean, all he was doing was just handing off the ball. Mm-hmm. And if they ask me to be a general manager next and they tell me I have to go out there and practice, Coop, they're going to have to put that in my contract. And they're going to have to pay me a little bit more. I'm not going out there sweating just to do what? Hand the ball off?
If they allowed you to hire and fire coaches, you'd hand the ball off anytime you want. That would be the best you could ask for. It's been a wonky season out there in Stanford already. But Andrew Luck, man, I've heard nothing but great things about him. I heard he's
Good
just
dude.
an unbelievable dude from his time in the NFL to the way that he treats people at Stanford. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a long year out there in Palo Alto. So they might need him, man. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. We'll see.
So here's my question. Courtney Morgan, former offensive lineman. You think he's going out there doing one-on-ones?
No, I don't think so.
Knock
Put
it
down
off,
some
Andrew.
bodies, man.
Knock it off,
I feel like
Andrew.
every show we talk about how a role of a general manager continues to evolve and change, and apparently taking snaps is
I want
something else.
no part of that.
No part of that. But you will happily critique his hairstyle.
Yeah.
What's happening
Bad look.
out there. This isn't an ultimate burning question, but this is from our friend Mike Rodak, quoting a story that was done by Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, where he talked to some people in the NFL ahead of the draft. And we always love it, too, because this is totally anonymous. This is apparently from an AFC coordinator saying, quote, "We heard out of Alabama, all the skill players would have transferred if Milroe came back." I think of that and think that that's dramatic, but what do you think?
I believe every time that you have a source, they need to put a name behind it. And I understand the game that they're playing right now. Someone's trying to land Jalen Milroe. And the easiest way is to throw a little bit of shade on him. And maybe that team was thinking about him, saying, we got 2 new receivers, Pittsburgh, that might not like a guy that can throw the ball vertically downfield like he does. But I hate when I see that, because all it does is just, it shows that inside of an organization, they're not buttoned up. When I was working with the Bills, one Bills drive, that was a definitely no-no. You'll get fired if anything came out of the building, regardless of if it was anonymous or not. And there's only a few teams that's willing to take Jalen Milroe. And the teams that are willing to take him are the ones that are throwing out shade. I doubt that the Buffalo Bills would have a coordinator that would say that.
I'm gonna take the college side, and I'm going to give those guys the benefit of the doubt. Like you said, there are a lot of things being thrown out there. If this is true, if that was said, I mean, Jalen Milroe, you think about this kid, 22-6 as a starter, gets benched, comes back, leads his team to the playoffs. They go 12-1, handles a transition what the Hall of Fame coach, and this is how you repay him on the way out?
Yeah, what?
Unbelievable intangibles, great leader. This guy's been a model for your program, and that's what you hear. Imagine being Jalen Milroe hearing that night before the NFL draft. I think it's a shame. And you know what? Be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Because when that guy's not there in the fall, and you got a quarterback battle right now with a lot of question marks, you're probably saying to yourself, you know what? Maybe we should have treated Jalen Milroe a little bit differently. And you might start feeling that in September or October for all those receivers out there saying, oh, we should have transferred somewhere else. I mean, that stuff is complete garbage and nonsense, especially talking about a guy like that who, when all these guys are bouncing and leaving, this dude gets benched and sticks through it and then comes out of the other side. That's nonsense to me.
Coop, if I close my eyes and you just described all that, great words, painted a picture to me, it reminded me of another Jalen that I didn't give that much credit to, but just how tough he is, mental fortitude, willing to go through anything. Yeah, we can say all that we want, but we can never knock his leadership and his toughness. And any receiver that wanted to leave, none of those guys said anything recently. Ryan Williams said, I'm sticking around. Jeremy Bernard said, I'm sticking around. There might have been one guy that left, but that guy might be in trouble too. Figure who that guy is.
You think they're doing him dirty, Jalen Milroe?
No. Being a former scout, sometimes you can go into a room and hear something and walk out with it and be like, you know what, I got the scoop. I remember we interviewed Eddie Jackson, and Eddie had some choice words to say about some of his other teammates. But it wasn't out of this malicious behavior. It was just me and Eddie sitting down and talking. But there was also a coach in there. So I had to tap Eddie like, Eddie, this is not me and you just talking. There's other people around talking. That's here with ears. So sometimes you hear some stuff like that it's not really meant to be like taken outside of the building. It could have been just in a candid conversation with two. But if you take that out and you use that, what's going to happen is that's probably your last time that you're going to be able to go into Alabama and get information like that. Keep that to yourself and keep that in-house. I wouldn't put that out on the street.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got one more ultimate burning question of yours that we want to get to before we say goodbye. This is Instagram from @TheLegendaryProject. How in the world is sophomore All-American Peyton Houston ranked number 200 overall in 2027? This is the quarterback. I know he's from Shreveport, Louisiana, so I should ask our Louisiana guy.
Ooh,
how in the world is he ranked 200?
Put it on me. First of all, let me start by saying this. I really like this kid, and he's extremely talented. Now, here's our job. Our job is to project these guys to the NFL draft, and here are the facts of the situation. Peyton Houston, and you can make an example out of him, but a lot of other players that are really talented and signal callers under 6 feet. There's only 3 quarterbacks under 6 feet that have been drafted in the last 9 drafts. This is a numbers game. This is a data game. This is an evidence game. And the context leads us to believe that he is fighting a very uphill battle. He is 5'10". He's got a long wingspan. And I'll say this. I'll give him one of the best compliments I can ever give him. From any quarterback outside of Bryce Young that I've watched in a combine setting, he maybe has some of the best command that I've seen, just in terms of the arm talent and velocity and what he can do. And then his lower base is so explosive. He can get the ball anywhere on the field. We've discussed this even in scouting meetings, that this is going to be a guy that we are going to have to continue to evaluate very closely, because all those things that I talked about saying, all right, we're going to overlook a guy because he doesn't meet the height threshold. He overcompensates in a lot of different areas. And if there was going to be a guy that could make it through, it's Peyton Houston. But the same conversations that we've had 3 years ago, they exist now. I brought this up before. When we drop Will Campbell in the rankings, he's going to be a top 10 pick. Okay, I'll take it on the chin. We dropped him because he had 32 7/8 arm. And I thought, well, he's going to be a guard. He'll have to kick inside, and his value won't be a tackle. What's the conversation we're having right now? What are we talking about? We're talking about Will Campbell's arm length. Okay, when we talked about, well, Will Johnson's never run. What are we talking about? Will Johnson's never run. So these same conversations exist. It doesn't mean that Peyton Houston is not going to be a very, very fine college football player, which I believe he will be. But when the NFL draft comes along, what do you think they're going to say? And I can't point to Bryce Young or Kyler Murray or any of those two guys. The other one was an all-world athlete, one of the most dynamic guys that we saw. And Bryce Young has been doing this at an extremely high level since he was back at Mater Dei. The things that you have to overcome to even get into that conversation of being a first-round type of talent at 5'10" is astronomical. So I'm not hating on the kid. We're not hating on the kid. We think he's a great player. And what I would say to him or any other 6-foot quarterback, who cares what we think? It doesn't matter. Control what you can control. Do your job. Keep showing up. Prove us wrong. And you're really good. You're really talented. So, that's my thought on him. And I don't care about the accolades and any of that stuff. It doesn't matter to me. So, I don't speak for the whole group on that. But, I get upset because this kid is extremely talented, but there is a philosophy that we are married to that over time and time and time we see in the NFL draft. This is really hard to overcome. And that being said, we still ranked him in the top 200 because we believe in that kid. So it just depends what side of the aisle you're looking at it from.
Coop, 200 is not a bad number. How many kids?
I don't know. I mean, he's a 2027.
Look, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Right. At some point, we all have to understand that competing and having that chip on your shoulder, especially at 5'10", you're going to carry around that for life. Yeah. So if you're at 200 right now, I remember a guy that was drafted 199. How did he fare out? Did okay. Just use that as fuel instead of begging to get closer to number one. And Coop, if I'm not number one, I'm just the first place loser. So I'm still trying to get to number one.
Yeah, and I'm not
200
saying,
don't even matter.
And I'm not saying he's doing that. And I don't.
Not him. I'm just saying overall.
Right. And it's just it's a question, but that's where it comes from a contextual standpoint. Damon Williams is going to be a hell of a player this year for Washington. We went through the same thing with him. We put him as a 90 rating outside, okay? Doesn't mean that these guys are not going to have really good careers. Doesn't mean that we're even right. It's just an opinion. Right. This is where we are on it. This is where we stand, and this is what the evidence has showed us. So we're trying to make the best decision with the most information that we've been given. And over the last decade, you're going to have to be an extreme outlier. That's what he's going up against.
Just another great reminder of all of these projections that you're doing are to the NFL draft. So not necessarily, like you said, he could be a fantastic college quarterback, also a sophomore. So there's still so much time for him to develop. Thank you for submitting your ultimate burning questions. We love to answer them on this show. And for that, we will bring you a gift coming up next week, which is... Yes, Haven Finney. Mark your calendars. Tuesday, April 28th, 4-Star Corner will join us live to announce his top 3 schools. You can find out if your school is a finalist right here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. And just like that, the transfer portal, it is set to close in 2 days. So after Finney's announcement, we will bring you a Transfer Portal Palooza recap show. That is Monday beginning at 4 Eastern. So if you have some questions,
got another one
prepare them. We got another one of these because the portal is closing. This one was only open for 10 days, but man, there's still a lot of actions. We got to remind you of everything that happened. But thank you so much for watching the Ultimate College Football Show. We'll see you every Monday and Wednesday right here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel.